To keep us and our planet healthy, we need to keep the global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees. The efforts we must make to address the climate crisis will also bring great additional benefits to all. For example, they will bring us a higher quality of life through cleaner air, greener cities, and better health. Everything Viable Cities does works towards the mission of Climate Neutral Cities 2030, with a good life for all within the planetary boundaries. To create these sustainable and flourishing communities, we need to work on many levels, from the neighborhood via the local community to the entire country, Europe, and the whole planet. We also need to work together, creating a portfolio of efforts and activities that pull in the same direction. Everything must be connected and contribute to the long-term transition. As part of Viable Cities, a growing number of cities are mobilizing to accelerate the local transition journey. They are doing so together with a broad range of stakeholders: companies, researchers, civil servants, experts, citizens, and politicians. The cities act as forerunners, paving the way for many more cities to transition more easily. We are learning together, step by step, what that journey looks like. That is what we're working on, creating the conditions to accelerate the transition to climate neutral and sustainable cities by 2030.
Here's a greeting from one of Viable Cities' pioneer cities, mobilizing to both face the climate crisis and to create good societies for all. They are paying forward to inspire others to follow suit. Come along!
Vad har ett företag inom fordonsindustri gemensamt med ett universitet och en bank när det kommer till klimatomställning? Det försöker Umeå ta reda på genom satsningen Umeå klimatfärdplan, som flera företag och offentliga organisationer har anslutit till. Idag besöker vi en av dem som är med i klimatfärdplanen.
Jag heter Anders Samuelsson och jobbar som kreativ ledare och övergripande köksmästare för verksamheterna inom Blåhuset. Jag jobbar mycket med utvecklingsfrågor och hur vi ska förändra vår verksamhet mot framtiden. Just nu befinner vi oss hemma hos familjen Brandt i deras växthus och här odlar vi grönsaker till verksamheterna inom Blåhuset.
Blåhuset är ett företag inom hotell och restaurang som på många sätt går i bräschen för och inspirerar till innovativa samarbeten med andra aktörer på orten.
För att minska matsvinnet så har vi inom vår verksamhet haft ett mångårigt samarbete med Martin och Servera där vi har tagit hand om överskottsgrönsaker och lagat dagens lunch baserat på det. Sen har vi ett annat samarbete med Västerbottens såpa där vi gör såpa av uttjänt matfett kan man säga, fritösolja som blir till såpa helt enkelt. För att minska utsläppen ifrån transporterna så har vi valt att fokusera väldigt mycket lokalt och handla närproducerat i mesta möjliga mån. Och när vi köper egna transporter så kravställer vi fossilfritt eller rent av eldrift. Vi har till exempel ställt om och köpt en tångboj på västkusten där vi köper alger och sjögräs istället för att importera dem från Europa.
Blåhuset ingår i ett nätverk för restauranger och skolkök som är en del i klimatfärdplanens fokusområde mat och jordbruk. Nätverket och Umeå klimatfärdplan är ett initiativ från Umeå kommun och syftet är att skapa mötesplatser och nya former för samarbeten mellan branscher och samhällssektorer.
Det som är viktigt med Umeå klimatfärdplan och att vi jobbar tillsammans där, det är just att vi måste göra det. Vi kan inte göra det här själv. Vi måste jobba tillsammans med olika organisationer. Vi har olika styrkor, vi har olika svagheter. Vi behöver sätta ihop dem så att vi tillsammans kan minska snabbt och kraftfullt våra klimatutsläpp här i Umeå.
För oss inom Blåhuset så var med i klimatfärdplanen betyder väldigt mycket. Vi får nya samarbeten, kontakter med branscher som vi annars kanske inte skulle ha fått. Och vi tror att den gemensamma kraften är viktig för att skapa den förändring som krävs.
Idag så är det Blåhuset som har bjudit in det andra i Umeå klimatfärdplan till lunch och samtal i växthuset.
de här nätverksträffarna, de här mötena med andra blir otroligt givande tycker jag. För att vi kan få de olika kontaktytorna och se att olika branscher tampas egentligen med i stort sett samma problematik. Så att träffas på det här sättet och gemensamt jobba med större frågor känns väldigt, väldigt viktigt.
And here is a greeting from another great effort contributing to the mission Climate Neutral Cities by 2030. Let's go!
Vi är på den mark här som ska bli Ottfjällets nya förskola. Och idag har vi tagit det första spadtaget här som vi ser bakom oss och invigt byggarbetsplatsen. Och det här är alltså då EUs första elektrifierade byggarbetsplats som vi då från Östersunds kommun tillsammans med Fossilfritt Sverige, Skanska och Volvo gör då i ett samarbete som är helt unikt och i framkant för den svenska klimatomställningen.
Detta är ju en del av vårt förskolekoncept där vi bygger förskolor runt om i Sverige. Och vi som bransch, bygg- och fastighetsbranschen, står för en väldigt stor del av de klimatutsläpp vi har. Så att vi kan ta de här stegen till en helt elektrifierad arbetsplats, det är ett steg på vägen till en klimatneutral byggbransch. Skanska har som mål att vara helt klimatneutrala 2045 och vi ska ha halverat våra klimatutsläpp till 2030. Vi gör klimatberäkningar i alla våra projekt och det är väldigt många små steg. Detta projektet här, det är ett riktigt spjutspetsprojekt där vi elektrifierar byggmaskinerna på en arbetsplats. Och det som är spjutspets idag, det är ett normalläge imorgon.
Och vad är det då för, man är lite nyfiken på, vad är det för apparater och verktyg, maskiner som ni kan bjussa på som då inte har funnits tidigare på marknaden?
Jag måste ta ett steg tillbaka. Det som händer här är att vi precis har tagit första spadtaget för Ottfjällets förskola. Och det har vi gjort med en EC230 Volvo-maskin, helelektrisk.
Är det den vi hör här bakom?
Det är den vi hör. Och vi hör inte så mycket av själva driften av maskinen men kanske lite av skrapandet mot marken och så vidare.
Hur jobbar Volvo med det här?
Vi jobbar extremt intensivt med utveckling av elektriska maskiner i dagsläget. Och det gör vi framförallt eftersom vi har åtagit oss att vara helt fossilfria 2040 med hela vårt sortiment. Och nu tar vi steg för steg i elektrifieringsresan och den maskinen som vi ser bakom oss är ett exempel på det.
And here is a greeting from another pioneer city who wants to inspire others to act. Join us!
Vi i Linköpings kommun har en lång tradition av samverkan mellan näringsliv, universitet och kommun. Och för att underlätta det här samarbetet ytterligare har vi nu arbetat med testbäddscheckar inom ramen för klimatneutrala Linköping. De som kan få testbäddscheckar är ju små eller medelstora bolag i Sverige. Och det handlar om att man har en idé som har potential att sänka växthusgasutsläppen. Och då kan det vara allt ifrån en tjänst eller en produkt eller en tanke som man vill pröva i verkligheten. Vi har bland annat ett område i Linköping som heter Ebbe Park och där finns en testbädd och där har ett bolag som heter Invisens fått göra sina tester. De har en lösning där man bygger in sensorer innanför våtskiktet i badrum. Och det handlar om då att man ska inte behöva renovera ett helt badrum och riva ut allting. Ett annat projekt som har varit är ett bolag som heter C-Pattern. Och de fick möjlighet att tillsammans med Tekniska verken testa sina turbiner. Och de har gjort en turbin som man sätter efter den vanliga turbinen. Och med hjälp av AI så kan man kräma ur ytterligare 10% av den energi som ändå passerar i vattenkraftverket.
Den här testbäddschecken har gjort det möjligt för oss att sätta oss vid ett bord med en av våra stora kunder, Stångåstaden, och vara kreativa tillsammans.
Vi har använt en lista för visualisering ett flertal år och så fick vi känslan att vi vill ha el i det här också och kontaktade Theodor på en lista. Bollade idéer och sen fick han möjlighet att söka en testbäddscheck. Och det gjorde att vi kunde utveckla det här nu, annars hade det nog dröjt i flera år. Men allting som kan hjälpa oss framåt i att nå våra energimål och klimatmål och kommunens solcellsmål som gör det lätt att se och få en bra överblick. Då är det smidigt och siffror finns. Det är bara att titta på dem på rätt sätt.
En rolig biprodukt av den här samverkan med Stångåstaden var att vi kom på ett sätt att hitta fastigheter där det är mest lämpligt att sätta solceller. Helt enkelt gör vi en analys av elanvändningen i fastigheten över året och över dygnet och ser var det finns störst behov av el under årets ljusa timmar. Samverkan är nyckeln till verklig kreativitet och just det här med solcellsanalysen hade vi inte kommit på om vi inte hade suttit vid bordet med Stångåstaden.
Det som testbäddschecken är med och bidrar till, det är ju att föra samman de här goda idéerna som våra techbolag har med kommunens arbete. Och att man kan se vad är möjligt att göra, hur kan vi hjälpas åt och snabba upp omställningstakten. Och tillsammans så blir det ju då att man får möjlighet att pröva idéerna i verkligheten för att sen kunna skala och sprida idéerna och inspirera andra.
Welcome to the European Viable Cities Day. This is the 6th consecutive year we welcome you to this event. And we're pleased to welcome you and see so many of you here in Stockholm and also on the live stream. I'm Per Granqvist, I'm going to be your guide to this event, where we're going to focus on the development of the Klimatkontrakt 2030, the Swedish Climate City Contract 2030, as a part of the mission to achieve climate neutral cities by, as you guessed, 2030. The European Viable Cities Day is a collaboration between the European Commission and Viable Cities, the Swedish publicly funded innovation program for climate neutral and sustainable cities. So we're going to start with the formal welcoming speeches from our hosts at the European Commission and Viable Cities. So I'm going to hand over the stage to Annika Wepplin-Korsitnek, Head of the European Commission's representation in Sweden, Cecilia Sjölin Seidegård, Chairperson of Viable Cities, and Anders Wikman, Vice Chairperson of Viable Cities.
Thank you very much. Waiting for Anders as well. Come and join us. Yes, warmly welcome to this, as you said, the 6th European Viable Cities Day. And firstly, I want to warmly thank the Viable City as organization. They have really done a terrific job of pulling this day together as every year, but also, of course, the everyday work they do to keep this movement of viable cities. So a warm thank you to you. And we at the European Commission's representation here in Sweden are very happy to be able to do this every year, because we really see that this is a very important step towards climate neutrality. I mean, we know we have this target of being climate neutral in the EU by 2050. And of course, what you do at a local level is crucial to make that happen. And it's important also to meet and see where we're going, take stock, to celebrate the progress, and maybe also look over what's not going so well. But most of all, just meet and discuss and see how we can exchange information and valuable input with each other. And we know that now acceleration of the transition is needed from many perspectives. We need capacity building, we need innovation and competitiveness through transition, and we need radical upscaling. And this is also the theme of today, to mobilizing and building capacity for climate transition. And As we heard, as every year, we also have the signing of the Swedish Climate City contract, which is also very exciting. But also, we're very happy to also see that in 2023 we had the first European climate contracts signed, which is a very important step towards spreading this great movement to the rest of Europe. So just with that, again, a warm thank you to Viable City, and I hope we will have a nice and inspiring day here today. Cecilia.
Oh, I think this one is working now. Yeah. Thank you. And first of all, welcome to all of you that are here today. And also, Annika, thank you for this hospitality you're showing every year, European Commission. It's great to be here. Really. At this event, the European Viable Cities Day, we celebrate action and those who really do the job. Accelerating action to make transition happen is the purpose of our common European-wide mobilization of cities towards the mission of climate neutral and smart cities by 2030. Here today, mayors of 23 cities, Director Generals of government agencies and Viable Cities will sign this year's version of the Swedish Climate City Contract 2030. I think I quoted the Secretary General of the United Nations last year time when we met, Antonio Guterres, and I will do that again because I think he's very clear. He said earlier this fall that this year the era of global boiling has arrived. He also said on the COP28 meeting just a couple of days ago that this is the greatest test of leadership ever. So I'm grateful that the European Commission and all our international partners and cities for showing leadership in the mission of climate control and smart cities 2030. And I hope we will have some inspiring days to get closer to our mission here. Please, Anders.
Well, thank you very much. We just had a luncheon together with the Director Generals, and we talked about both the European perspective and the international perspective. And of course, today, even the Dubai conference is ongoing. It's natural to take stock of what's really happening there. And it's easy to be confused because there are so many issues being discussed. Among them, of course, the role of cities. There was a major conference yesterday focusing primarily on low-income countries and big cities and the problems they already experience. And I think it's not on our direct agenda, but it's part of our remit to be concerned and to realize that when we talk about multi-level governance, it's not only a question of our own government and the cities and the regions. It's also a question of the European level and the global level. So it's all tied together. And if I may pick one or two issues at the international level that I think has been not well managed or handled in the years, it's support for low-income countries to put in place the green technology infrastructure they need. It's easy for us to say phase out fossil fuels because we have started some time ago to build that infrastructure. We still have a long way to go, but we are on our way. And we have the financial, we have the technological resources. But many of the low-income countries don't have that. And I said during the luncheon that not more than 2% of all investments in solar and wind during the period after the year 2000 have taken place in Africa. No wonder that African countries are skeptical to signing things that are very far-reaching from their point of view. So I think we have to express our voice when it comes to these international issues as well as we do here. Then we also talked about the situation in our country and in the European countries ahead of the next election. And one of the things we really talked about was how do we demonstrate to citizens. Some are very much in favor, some are skeptical, to this agenda? How do we make them understand that when we talk about this, it's not only about costs, it's about investments in a better future. And that's why we have to focus very much on the benefits of doing the right things, on the co-benefits. For instance, more livable, cleaner, less noisy cities. That's one aspect of it. So I think we have a very broad agenda to pursue. And I hope we can do that partly today and in the year to come. And it's wonderful to see all our 23 cities from different parts of Sweden. We know that some of you are indeed experimenting with interesting things that we hope to be able to scale up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The emission-oriented approach has been a guiding principle for viable cities since the idea first came into being a decade ago. It's also an act of radical trust in humanity, believing that the goal that is audacious enough will inspire people from many backgrounds to mobilize and band together and solve the problem. The power of the mission-oriented approach is evident in the way that the European Union has decided to foster innovation in a number of ways, in a number of areas that are important to humanity. As we heard, the European Union Cities Mission, more than 100 cities are pledged to be climate neutral by 2030, a part of the ambition to achieve a climate neutral continent by 2050, which is the Green Deal. And to talk about the importance of those forerunning cities and the ongoing mobilization for a just transition to a low-carbon society, we're honored to have Mr. Leo Huberts from the European Commission joining us today. Mr. Huberts is the Director General for Mobility and Transport, Mission Secretariat, and I will welcome him to the floor to give his remarks.
Good afternoon. First, a correction, I'm not the Director General, I'm replacing the Director General. And I have to make two apologies for the Director General who could not be here, Mr. Patrick Child, who is also our mission manager. And maybe for my voice, because it seems that Stockholm has given me a cold yesterday evening. So I'll try to do my best. So my name is Leo Huberts. I work for the European Commission DG Move, which is the Mobility and Transport Department, in the unit Research, Innovation and Urban Mobility. And that's also because urban mobility, and that's also why I am in the Cities Mission team, which is the team dealing with the daily management and coordination of the Cities Mission. So COP28 was already mentioned. COP28 marks the first global stocktake under the Paris Agreement. And the aim of this global stocktake is to assess our global response to climate crisis and to inform parties about the state of climate change. And I think we all know already what the answer will be on that. The pledges, the targets, the actions, they are not sufficient to keep global warming under 1.5 degrees. The climate crisis is urgent and time is running out. We all know this. On the other hand, there's also a bit of hope. I mean, the IPCC report illustrates that there are multiple feasible and effective options available to reduce greenhouse emissions and to adapt human-induced climate change. But cities, they can and they must play a pivotal role in transforming these options into real-life actions. But to mobilize these options, we need forerunners. And that brings me to the viable cities and also to the EU Climate Neutral and Smart Cities mission. So in 2017, a long time ago, when the EU was still dreaming of a climate neutral and smart cities mission, you, viable cities, took up the gauntlet by mobilizing forces and created a movement to achieve climate neutral cities by 2030. Today, 23 Swedish viable cities work together with industry, with academia, with the research institutes and civil society to accelerate the climate transition in cities by 2030. You, viable cities, you are leading by example. And you are a very important source for others, for the EU, in the EU and elsewhere, but especially for the EU Cities Mission by showcasing the European Green Deal at local level. The Cities Mission is a bit different from other initiatives in the sense that it's cross-sectoral and it has a demand-led approach. It creates synergies between the existing initiatives and it will base its activities on the actual needs of the cities. And not only it gives cities a chance to lead in climate and digital innovation, it also introduces fundamental changes in governments, multi-level governments. We just discussed it over lunch, a very important element. Also, citizens' engagement, important aspect. And last but not least, it shows the attractiveness for investments, especially private investments. To help cities putting their climate ambitions into action, the Commission has set up and financed a so-called mission platform, which is managed by the Net Zero Cities Consortium. And that platform will provide tailored technical and financial advice to the cities in the mission, but also to cities outside the mission, by the way. The first objective of the city's mission, is not a secret for you, is to have 100 cities to be climate neutral by 2030. So to this end, in April 22, we've selected out of 377 applicants, 100 cities from the EU, but also 12 cities from the associated countries. But it doesn't stop with the selection of these 112 cities. The second objective of the mission is to ensure that these 112 cities will act as innovation hubs, as test beds for all the other cities in the European Union to become climate neutral in 2050 in line with the European Green Deal. So it means that cities, that express their interest but that were not selected in this group of 100 cities, they will not be forgotten. We will ensure through the mission platform support that the number of services will be available to many of these cities that fall outside the 100. This will include twinning, teaming, web-based assistance, seminars, the organization of conferences, etc. Just to give you a concrete example of the support that the mission platform is providing to cities is the Pilot City program. This program, which has a budget of 32 million, started in March of this year with 53 cities. These cities are now experimenting with rapid decarbonization strategies using small grants between 500,000 and 1.5 million. And a second call for pilot cities is also on the agenda. It was closed on 6th of November and has a budget of 20 million. These pilot cities work together then also in a twinning program with 40 additional cities. So we have the cities in the mission and we have the cities outside the mission, both groups benefiting from this. Based on our experience with the selection of the mission cities and also the review of the first climate city contracts that was already referred to, it became clear that cities need a particularly strong support for finance expertise. That is why the platform is now developing a capital hub. A capital hub which has the aim to help cities to overcome traditional barriers for climate action implementation. On the one hand, it will provide initial project development assistance, and on the other hand, and that's even more important, connecting public and private financial institutions to the cities. Another vital point for the city's mission is the cooperation with member states and regional authorities. So national networks are developing in many countries. Very good example is Spain, but also Greece, for example. It means that the national level should and could also support in facilitating the cooperation and the knowledge sharing with non-mission cities. So here we need all the levels, the EU, the national and the regional level. In addition to this cooperation with national and regional levels, it's also important to ensure that there's a societal uptake of new solutions and approaches that make cities sustainable. So we therefore encourage also to involve citizens. And I just said at the lunch, cities should talk with the citizens, not to the citizens. We should help them in co-creating and co-implementing solutions with the aim of developing a kind of co-ownership. Because if you make citizens co-owner of your problem and solution, then they are willing to contribute. So all the mission cities are now working on climate city contracts. with the hands-on support of the mission platform. Just to explain a bit, the climate city contracts, they consist of a commitment part, of a climate action part, and of an investment plan. And these three parts will be reviewed as follows. The commitment plan will be reviewed by us, by the mission team. Then we have our joint research center, so our scientific colleagues, who will review the climate action plan. And we have independent financial experts that look at the financial plan, and they are assisted by observers from the EIB, the European Investment Bank. So these three groups start the review. At the end, we will have a consensus meeting. We come to an agreement, and then we go to the mission board, which is a body of experts supporting the city's mission, and the mission owners group. The mission owners group is a body of the commission DGs that have a stake in the city's mission. So they give their advice, and then if everything goes according to plan, within 4 months, the mission manager then gives a mission label to those city climate contracts who have been reviewed positively. The mission label is a sign of recognition, acknowledging the quality of the city climate contract and also the process that led to it. And it should also facilitate the access to funding and financing. But to be very clear, it's not a license to print money. The doors will not automatically open for budget. You still have to come with good proposals. But if you have a mission label on top, that should be able to help you. The first 10 mission labels have been awarded on the 12th of October of this year. These cities were Sonderborg in Denmark, Mannheim in Germany, and then we have Madrid, Valencia, Valladolid, Vitoria-Gasteiz, and Zaragoza in Spain, Klagenfurt in Austria, Cluj-Napoca in Romania, and last but certainly not least, Stockholm. Meanwhile, the CCCs keep coming in. We have opened the second submission window. In this window, 13 more cities have submitted their climate city contract. This includes Malmö. We will try to finalize the review of these 13 cities in mid-January. In the meantime, we have received another batch of 10 cities, which we will also have to review, hopefully by mid-February. And then our plan is by March to come to a conclusion with the award of the mission labels. Where it's not yet clear on when, we would try to find an event under the Belgian presidency on the 15th of March, or if that doesn't work, the Research and Innovation Days of the European Commission that take place between the 18th and 21st of March. And hopefully this will be done in the presence of the Executive Vice President of the Commission or a Commissioner. Ladies and gentlemen, Viable Cities started in 2017. That's 2 years before the Green Deal was launched, the European Green Deal. That means you are pioneers. Your pioneering work with climate city contracts have proven to be a very effective tool for the mobilization, and is now also being implemented by the EU in the city's mission. Together with the 23 viable cities in Sweden, the 112 mission cities will act as lighthouses that will lead the way to climate transition. And it's now up to the rest of Europe to follow your example and to join in protecting the future against climate change. I would conclude by congratulating Stockholm for being the first one in the group to receive the mission label, a label that recognizes leaderships in mobilizing this mission. And also on behalf of the city's mission manager, Patrick Child, who could not be here today, I would like to thank all the mayors in all the Swedish cities that are part of this long-term effort, and also all the government authorities, agencies that are supporting their work for being a forerunner in the energy and climate transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I should also point out that we are now live at COP28 in the Swedish pavilion. So hello, hejsan hejsan to all of you visiting there. Every year we celebrate people whose work and thoughts have moved us closer to making cities climate neutral and more viable. We call them Viable Cities Champions. And it's now time to celebrate the champion of 2023. So I'm going to be joined on stage by Olga Kordas, Program Director of Viable Cities and Associate Professor of the KTH Royal Institute of Technology.
Thank you, Per. Yes, so of course, Viable Cities, during all the years, there were many people who made Viable Cities happen. Our mayors, our cities, our universities, and all partners who belong to Viable Cities family. Actually, yesterday we celebrated some kind of unofficial 10 years of Viable Cities. This was from the days when we started to write something which we call Strategic Innovation Agenda for Smart and Sustainable Cities. It was time when KTH, my university, Royal Institute of Technology, invited our partners, municipalities, other universities, companies, and civil society organizations to form the strategic innovation agenda and explain why Sweden should invest in research innovation in order to drive the climate transition and sustainability transition in our cities. And year 2013, I have met a person who really had a major role in development of Viable Cities, but also development of the European mission for climate neutral cities. The person who is, I would say for me personally, was the most inspiring person of my professional life. So this year, as we are celebrating these 10 years for Viable Cities, we will have only one Viable Cities champion, as this person is Allan Larsson. Allan, let me read the motivation for that. And now I start to think if I need also to go to and get my glasses. Okay, Allan, for your pioneering efforts in developing our common EU climate cities mission, as well as in developing of Viable Cities. As a Swedish national platform engaging citizens, businesses, cities, academia, and civil society in this work. And also for your efforts being a thought leader and international forerunner in accelerating the transition towards climate neutral and sustainable cities by 2030. Allan, it's my privilege to give this small coin of appreciation to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Så här. Så.
Vi tar bort den för den är ful, du får den strax.
Okej. Bra. Så. Tack.
Now you get your paper back.
Yeah.
Titta, looks like wonderful. So, I know you want to say a few words, and then I have a few questions.
Put the glasses on the right place first.
Yeah.
So, Olga and Viable Cities, thank you so much for making me Viable Cities champion this year. I'm deeply honored, and I would like to share this honor with the great Viable Cities team. Olga, the founding mother of Viable Cities, both a mathematician and a doer, a unique combination. And and also with the members of the board and members of the team over the last 10 years. In this team, I include all of you who are decision makers and doers on local level. Great teamwork. Thank you so much. Can I say a few words about the history?
No, I have a question. Okay. Say a few words about the history.
Okay. Yes. Of history to learn for the future. Not the history for its own sake, but to learn. So as this is a European event, I would like to answer Per's question by reminding about one very important person, Jean Monnet, the founding father of Europe, the new Europe. He said, "Nothing is possible without people, but nothing lasts without institutions." Nothing lasts without institutions. Think about that. That's why institution building has been such a fundamental part of the construction of Europe. That's history, and a successful history. But now, if we look to our task, to the present, we could perhaps use Monnet's way of phrasing this in a new way. So a modern climate-focused version of this observation could be, nothing is possible without people, but nothing will be achieved without governance. That leads us to what the whole activities in viable cities and on the European cities is about. To build a new governance for a new challenge. Our old structures does not address this sort of problems. So that leads me to one reminder about how it started for us. We, Olga, Mikael Anneroth, and I went to Brussels a few years ago to learn about the new ideas for the European Innovation and Research Program. And we learned that there were some very new important ideas. To go from project funding of innovation to mission funding. That was a great step, to go from the small projects to a big mission. And to do that, you need to have a new form of governance. And we went back and we started to think about how can we do that? How can I do that? Big step. So the idea came up that we have to address cities, mayors in a new way. Not by offering them 20 different national agencies with different funding and different rules. We must have a new way of doing it. And that was the idea of a climate contract. So a climate contract between the mayor and the government. That was the basic idea. We tested this idea. So Olga and I, we started the tour in 2019 to 6 cities, and we met 9 of them, 7 of them before the pandemic started, and 2 of them in this way. So we tested this idea, said, what do you think about it? And we got very good response from the mayors. This is a new way. We would like to have this one negotiation, mutual supportive, mutual achievements. So that was the start of it. Then, and this is interesting thing between the national level and European level. I came to become a member of the European Viable Cities Mission, and that board picked up the idea of a climate contract, a European climate contract, but added new elements to it. One was the idea of one-stop shop instead of many different agencies. One was the whole value chain to keep together money. Another was investment plan. These were 3 elements on European level that we brought back and included in our ways of working. So that was how history was shaped. It was a very productive cooperation between the European level and our level, national level.
You're very easy to interview, so you can guess my next question, which is about the future.
Future? Oh, yes, that's interesting. As Anders Wickman said, there's been now in COP28 a first big event on cities. And I think that's a good signal that it has reached that level. Understand that that's in the cities That's where you have the problem, and that's where you have the solution, and you have to have citizens board. Citizens not only to talk with, but to identify citizens not only as voters or those who are served by public service, but as citizens, we are owners of our housing, of our transport means, our recycling system. And in that capacity, as owner of these important elements, you have to address them and involve them as we are decision makers on local level, on really local level on this. They must be included. Now, what could we do? I listen and I understand that a lot of things are going on, and that's very positive. It's fantastic to see the examples here. But there's one thing I think is missing, and that is the relation between national government and local authorities. We talked about one-stop shop, whole value chain, investment plans, but you need more momentum, much more momentum. And what I would like to remind you on, and hope that it can be inspiring, that is what was done over the last 10 years in Sweden between the governments, successive governments, and local authorities on the transport system. First in Stockholm to build the new underground system here. You can see it when you travel around. That was a national compact between the government and the city of Stockholm. And that was then taken forward to become a national compact between government and a number of local authorities, cities, on the national railroad system. So that's a way to put together big things into one negotiation. I would like to see the same going on climate investment contracts.
That's your wish for the future. Well, I hope that comes true. Thank you so much. Another applause for Mr. Larsson. Thank you. To put Allan Larsson's work in perspective, I'd like to invite Julio Lumbreras to comment where we are in the mobilization of cities mission in Spain and in Europe. And this guy is a professor at Technical University of Madrid, UPM. He teaches at Harvard University in Boston and is the founder and director of Cities 2030, which is Viable Cities' sister program in Spain, and causes this man to be called the Olga Cordas of Spain. You also served as the member on the board of the European Mission for Climate and Neutral Smart Cities alongside Mr. Larsson. What influence would you say that Allan Larsson had on the mobilization for climate neutral cities in the Union?
Well, a lot. But first, thank you for inviting me. And I'm sorry I'm not as beautiful as Olga, so yeah. But well, it can survive. So you asked me to present a bit Allan, and it was hard to decide because, as Olga said, he's a very inspirational person, right? But if there is a word that I would say defines him, was influencer. Now, what does influencer mean for you? Probably these people who has 50 million followers in Twitter or X now or Instagram or whatever, right?
Takes a lot of selfies.
Yes, but he is really influencing to improve the quality of life of many people, right? Because if we think about the mission, now the 112 cities are covering 54 million people. And thanks to the mission, thanks to his work there, now we are trying to improve the life for these people, right? So he's an influencer because when he was in the board, I was with him in the board, and I have many anecdotes. And I remember one of the first days when we were deciding the title of the mission, we were saying about 100 climate neutral and smart cities. And he said, yes, but I would add at the end, by and for the citizens. So he was putting the citizens at the center and trying to improve their lives, right? And then another day, he brought the idea of the Climate City contract, thanks to the work here that we were been doing in Sweden, and we assumed this. And he brought the idea of the one-stop shop, and we assumed this. And he was working a lot on the mission label and also on the lending and blending facility and everything. So he brought lots of ideas, and he was not just inspiring us, but also moving us to action, right? So he has been absolutely influential in all this work.
And looking into this room, there's many cities that are also influencers now. Where would you say that we are at the moment? How is the mobilization going in Europe?
Well, I think we are at a tipping point now. So we've developed the mission, we launched it, and well, Mr. Havertz were talking about the history and the process, and it was fun because when we were in the mission board and we talked about this and launched the mission, there was some bet at the European Commission about how many cities will apply for this, right? And if I don't know if you were in this bet, but the most optimist one said 150. And you know how many cities applied for the mission? 377, which was 40% of the cities that were able to apply because they were above 50,000 inhabitants, right? So there is a huge appetite from cities to change things, right? Now, the European Commission selected 112. Now we already have the first 10 with the mission label, and we have 25 more applying for the second round. So now cities are doing their work. But now we need to move from developing the Climate City contract to implementing the Climate City contract, right? And now is when we need real action. And now is when we need to change people's lives and improve people's lives in the best sense. So increasing quality of life, as you always say, which is very inspiring. So now we are at this tipping point. So we need to mobilize both fundings, resources, but also political will, political support at the multi-level, at the local, the national, the regional, the national, and the European level.
Thank you so much for providing a perspective of the future, Mr. Julio Lombreros. 3 years ago, history was made when the first Swedish contract was signed by 9 city mayors and the director generals from government agencies here. And it's already cascading, as we've heard, on a local level as well on a European level. So the Climate City contract is an agreement between cities, government agencies and viable cities, which all parties commit to make concrete contributions to speed up that climate transition. The contract has one part that is the same, the commitments and implementation of the government agencies and the viable cities. The other part of the contract, related to cities, looks different since it's adapted to the various circumstances they have. Our cities, as you know, are different in size and do not have the same geography, industry or political governments even. And several cities also added an annex to the contract with more detailed information on how they are working to the climate transition. It's important to stress that the climate contract is a long-term process that ensures cooperation between cities and the national level. And since there's no clear single path forward, we need to test our ways, we need to learn from action and from each other. And the process of the city contract will develop over time. It improves every year, it will be revised every year at different levels. So today, 3 years later, it's time to do the signing. We are working with 23 Swedish cities and 6 government agencies at the moment to accelerate the transition. So I'd like to say welcome on stage, dear mayors and director generals, for the signing ceremony to begin. Lovely. We'll now return to with the celebration of that. I think it's important also to mention and to stress that the ceremony you just watched is not a celebrating a goal, it's celebrating a milestone. We celebrate the effort so far and we look forward to all the things they will achieve in the future and inspire others and going forward. As IKEA founder Ingvar Kamprad often said, most things are yet to be achieved, wonderful future. It's important to stress that the transition is not going to happen in the future. It is already happening. It's not only about being climate neutral, but achieving a better life for all, creating truly viable cities where the quality of life is high and emissions are low. Which is evident in Östersund, one of the 23 cities that is mobilizing for climate neutrality with viable cities. So let's have a look at that.
Att livet 2030 i Östersund kommer att vara ett jättebra liv. Jag tror att det kommer att vara ett liv med fokus på livskvalitet, där vi förstås delvis kommer att leva annorlunda än vad vi gör idag, men att det annorlunda kommer att vara något som är bättre.
Ja, men det tror jag med. Jag tror att vi är ju fler människor. Vi kommer locka till oss fler företag. Vi kommer ha ett mer levande centrum, tror jag, med mer plats både för människor och för rörelse och för lek. Jag tror att det är grönare och att kanske värderingarna, liksom vad vi förknippar med livskvalitet, har skiftat lite grann. Östersund är det ju utsläpp från transporter och arbetsmaskiner som är vår kanske största utmaning. Och där har vi gjort ett jättespännande projekt under det senaste året. Och då tänker jag på utsläppsfri arbetsplats, alltså bygget av en förskola i Torvalla, förskolan Ottfjället, där vi har elektrifierade arbetsmaskiner. Och det är ett samarbete som vi gör tillsammans med Fossilfritt Sverige, Skanska och Volvo.
Och där det visar hur näringslivet verkligen är på tå, hur man driver och ligger framkant i frågor om hållbarhet. Vi har också haft en stor etablering som har presenterats här i Östersund nu i år, som gäller en symbios mellan olika företag som i grunden handlar om ett datacenter som alstrar en massa restvärme som då i sin tur går in i stora växthus. Och när de här plantorna har fått sin värme så kommer då luftströmmarna gå tillbaka in i det här datacentret igen och hjälpa till att kyla det. Så det blir ett helt cirkulärt system. Och det är en gigantisk investering, men man ser verkligen möjligheten i omställningens tider, den gröna omställningen och vilka möjligheter det medför för oss.
Ja, det är jättespännande. Och tänker på tema cirkularitet så har vi också byggt ett mellanlager för bygg- och anläggningsmassor så att vi kan tillvarata restprodukter som blir då från när vi renoverar eller bygger nytt.
Det är så mycket som händer just nu och vi har en väldigt stark utveckling i vår del av landet och i vår kommun. Och vi kommer ju också att växa, vi kommer att bli fler. Och det är klart, i det här så är det också viktigt att vi både jobbar tillsammans, men också att var och en av oss kommer ju behöva vara modiga framöver nu. Man kommer behöva liksom pröva sina egna ställningstaganden och reflektera över vilka val man själv gör för att vi ska kunna leva tillsammans när vi blir flera och på ett hållbart sätt så att vi möter framtiden så att det funkar. Men om man ska bli så superkonkret då, liksom, vad betyder det här? Så kan man egentligen bara titta ut genom fönstret, tänker jag. Då kommer massvis med snö de senaste dagarna och då märker man vad det här betyder för östersundarna och för jämtarna. Så vi lever ju verkligen upp i snön.
Ja, och jag tror att det är en jätteviktig del av vårt platsvarumärke och attraktionskraften för att få hit både fler invånare och företag.
Absolut.
Så jag hoppas att vi har möjlighet att få visa upp den här vackra, härliga vinterskruden, eller vårvinterskruden, när vi välkomnar alla 23 Viable City-städer hit i mars nästa år.
Välkomna!
Let's focusing now on mobilizing and building capacity for climate transition. As I said before, we've achieved much, but we have still to raise the ambition even further and get more actors on board to reach our mission goals. And that's I want to talk with my guests on what to do next. Because again, an important factor is to mobilize on several levels, from local to national to international, and by doing so, it's important that all levels understand each other and the importance of each other. So let's welcome people who can talk about that, the representatives from various actors and levels. Carolina Skog, member of the EU Mission Board for Climate Neutral and Smart Cities 2030, and Johan Kuylenstierna, Director General, Formas, a Government Research Council for Sustainable Development. Welcome. Mrs. Skog, from your perspective as a member of the EU Mission Board, what's the role of national platforms like Viable Cities in Sweden and Cities 2030 in Spain and others going forward?
The role, I think, is to gather energy and to share experience, the good experience, where we can make evident the co-benefits that are really there in a progressive climate work on municipality level that can really create opportunities for business and a better life for citizens, and to work together there and to really learn from each other, and not to do the same mistakes over and over, but learn from each other. I think that's the role of the national platforms.
Are we really learning today, or should we learn even more faster? Should we talk more to each other, or is it about sharing examples?
I think we need to move faster. We need to move faster from pilot program to deployment in big scales. And there, I think we have a unique instrument in this program, which is the investment plans, which for me is very much about upscaling and take the lessons from local examples and to really make them big, and hence really, really interesting to the big capital and the big businesses that also can have a global impact.
Do we need to be more brave or less afraid to do mistakes?
Both. I think you need to be proud of your mistakes. It's very important. This is a program of research and innovation. Must include mistakes. If we don't make mistakes, we are cowardice. But also, of course, we need to be brave in the terms of really to think big. And to find the means to deploy in big scale.
Mr. Kuylenstierna, together with 5 other government agencies, you're involved in the work of accelerating climate transition. Do you have some concrete examples of what you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of concrete examples. I think one a particular point that is really key here. We work on the science policy sort of interface, and I think it's amazing, having worked 30 years on climate-related issues, in particular from also the science side. The examples we have here is exactly what we need: the science to policy and applications. These are perfect examples of how the realities of climate change and climate adaptation is really translating into actions in municipalities. So as research funders, we have a key role in really bridging that gap. And I think that is absolutely essential. So one concrete example is to really mobilize actors. Funding can have a very strong role in doing that. So when we have research and innovation funding, instead of just focusing on academia, for instance, which is of course the traditional actor, we try much more to work in multi-party partnerships, getting municipalities and the private sectors, because we see that collaboration here very much, together in the different programs and the fundings that we have. And it's not just about getting a research results to these actors. It's actually getting the municipalities on board to also define the research agendas. What are the gaps? What are the knowledge needs that they have? And how can that then translate into research that can really provide answers for the challenges that they are facing?
Are there a lot of knowledge gaps, or is it just the deployment that we know? I mean, all the facts are on the table. All the technology we need to move into a climate-neutral society is basically there.
I mean, there is a gap really in action right now. There is no doubt about that. But I think we should be careful about also understanding that there are gaps in terms of knowledge. And I think with, the way we use our different tools, we also try to see how we can get more actions into, faster actions as well. So for instance, the traditional research called FIND is a long-term program, but we also try to work, for instance, with policy labs, which is a way of getting different actors on board and really focusing on problems as they are coming up and see how you can take that forward. That's one way of also supporting actions. What I think is key here, and I just want to send that as a signal, because this is also, one thing is what we can do.
Sending you want.
I know, but one of the things, of course, what is it that we can do? But you have to realize also, we are coming up in a very important year in 2024. The next research and innovation bill will be presented. We have a national research program focusing on sustainable spatial planning, and this has been for 10 years, which is key, the long-term part here. This is up for negotiation. The current program ends in 2026. This is about 150 million per year that we can invest specifically into the needs of local municipalities, for example. We don't know yet if that will continue. So we have to really demonstrate why research and innovation funding is really contributing to the challenges that municipalities are facing to implement viable cities and the whole mission program. What I also want to just add there is that we need to also get in other aspects of sustainability related to climate mitigation and adaptation. So what we propose is a stronger focus also on land-related issues, which I think is key for many municipalities, but also a chemical safe society, because we can see both in climate adaptation and mitigation that this will also have a lot of impacts on other parts of the environment and also on society, chemicals being one of these areas. So we are trying to build a set of tools that combined can really provide the knowledge, the research that can help municipalities in this transition also moving forward.
Mrs. Skog, sometimes when you're sort of leading the pack like these 23 cities are doing, you can also become a little bit fat and happy. Think, okay, we're ahead of the pack. What's your argument for sort of pushing even further, to leave the pack behind, so to speak?
Well, that's the co-benefit of being progressive. That will attract businesses. It will create an innovative atmosphere in your city, which is a nice place to be in. Few citizens like to live in the fat cat. It's much more fun in the innovative part. But of course, doing that in terms of communication, having your citizens along with you is of course very, very important. But of course, one driving force is the cost of inaction. We have had experiences of drought, of heavy rain in Sweden, and still we have seen just a little bit of the actual costs of the actual risks that we can face if we do nothing. If we do not do anything in Västra Götaland along the rivers there, it could be catastrophic and very, very, very expensive. So of course, I think that if you need a reminder, take a glance of the cost analysis of the risk of doing nothing. They're very, very big.
Thank you so much. Karolina Skog från Mission Board och Johan Kuylenstierna från Formas. Let's now invite a few guests to talk more about to mobilize and build capacity for climate transition. I want to welcome on stage Lars Thunberg, Municipal Commissioner in City of Helsingborg, Linnea Johansson-Klät, Chair of the Climate Council in the City of Borås, as well as Malin Olsson Lundqvist, Member of the Municipal Board, City of Mariestad. Welcome. My first question is really if you can give one example of how you involve a range of different stakeholders in your local climate transition. Let's start with you.
Well, we are at a crucial moment now, and the call for climate action is bigger and more important than ever. Earlier this year, representatives from businesses, academia, and the civil society was invited and have come together with the city to plan the way forward. The City of Helsingborg has invited stakeholders to join forces, working together to enhance climate efforts and develop important measures to a sustainable future outlined in our new climate plan. And the focus is where to go, where to move, and how to move beyond the individual interests and take shared responsibility for our planet. So the Helsingborg Declaration and Climate Agreement in Helsingborg bring companies together and form the future together and make the goals be united for climate neutrality 2030.
Thank you. And what's happening in Borås?
Well, alongside with many cities here and in Europe and in the world, we in Borås strive to meet all three dimensions of sustainability. And we work together with industry and academia and civil society, just as you said. And besides being part of Viable Cities program, we're also part of different research projects, EU projects, and networks, local, regional, and national. And our collaborations and networks allow us to work together with different stakeholders and create different transition arenas where we can learn, grow, and take climate action together. And as all of you probably know, innovation is not always as extravagant as it may sound. It's about learning about each other's needs and wants. And if we can identify common challenges and problems and start working more together, we can solve them and are more likely to be successful. And therefore, in Borås, we're currently working with our construction industry and property owners around the issue of sustainable construction, as construction sector generates huge climate emissions. So through the Viable Cities project, we have invited stakeholders early in the process to get input from the sector. And our climate council has been a part of that as recently as yesterday. And so we are working on that, and also not only make a governing document and to create a movement where we work together.
What's happening in Mariestad?
Well, as you might have heard, Per, Volvo is building a pretty big battery cell factory in Mariestad. They start next year, and that put Mariestad in a very special position right now, where just for that we couldn't imagine for like 3 years ago, where we the growth that we're standing in front of and all the possibilities according to the green transition that we stand on. I would like to give 4 examples on how we interact with different stakeholders, and one is the initiative Norrkvarn that we worked with the companies, and our next step in that is to work a little bit more deepening with the agricultural sector. We work in a project called Sustainable Lifestyle, where we work together with a target group from 18 to 30 to youth that we talk about the circular economy and where they want to, what kind of city they want to live in when they grow up. We work very closely together with our biosphere office, and they in their turn work with associations to put emphasis on how can we help them to become climate neutral associations, and they be multiplicator to when they talk to other peoples then. And then also to turn to just the regular citizens with different platforms that we work together with.
Helsingborg, you are part of the 112 cities in the EU cities mission. In what way does being part of that European-wide mobilization affect your work?
It's very important to work together, and together with 100 climate neutral and smart cities, we are doing this and working together in a more dynamic way. This setup, it pushes us to create new partnerships and explore innovative funding of what we want to do, and build collaborators to go beyond what we are thinking of what is the city limits. We are on a journey to where ideas and how action are driving forces to go beyond what we are thinking are the borders. And as Europe's leading cities, innovative and climate neutral cities, we have a responsibility, and we are proud to be a part of this. And the Viable Cities and this context is so important for us to be a part in context and work together with other cities.
Borås and Mariestad are smaller cities, but similar to very many cities across Sweden and Europe. In what way do you think you can contribute to showing the way to cities internationally? Let's start with you in Borås.
Well, in smaller cities, local stakeholders might be closer to one another than in bigger cities, and sometimes both geographically but also culturally. And that being said, we know that that's not always the case, but in Borås, both the politicians and civil servants and local society work very closely together, and we have engaged companies and organizations that want to make a difference locally. And we can develop methods and models together, but also we need to share them. We need to get better at sharing all the good work that we do in all the cities. And that's the question, but it's not easy to just, even if we make a good model, how do we make sure that all the cities can work through that model? That's a tricky question. But we all have to dig where we stand and work with our unique local surroundings, regardless if we are citizens, politicians, or other stakeholders.
What about you in Mariestad?
You address Borås as a smaller city, and in our eyes, it's a big city in Borås. But I guess that we are representing a large group of cities in Sweden. We believe that being a small city, then of necessity you have to work very effectively with your resources that you have. You have to work away from silos. You have to cooperate with other sectors, cross-sectorally, and also the sectors in the society. You have to be innovative and evolve and evaluate and evolve your process all the time to make sure that your resources are being enough. And I think that other cities can be inspired by our working methods.
A little bit more common sense, so to speak.
Exactly. That's
Thank
the
you
word.
so much, Mariestad, Borås and Helsingborg. The transition to a zero-carbon society is also a driver of many new opportunities, and we will now focus our attention on how jobs are created and how competitiveness is increased as a result. Because still, we need to get better at mobilizing companies by helping them see the business opportunities in order to get their help in driving the transition. Fossil Free Sweden is a national initiative to make Sweden the first fossil-free welfare state in the world. And I'm now going to hand over and be joined on stage by Mr. Svante Axelsson, the national coordinator by Fossil Free Sweden. And we asked him to share how companies can benefit as our cities are now transitioning to becoming climate neutral. Mr. Axelsson.
Nice to be here this special day, and I'm inspired of what I hear so far, and I will just share some thoughts from my perspective when I'm working in this fossil-free project. As you know, we have delivered 22 roadmaps for fossil-free competitiveness. And I mean, that type of and type of narrative has changed a bit how we discuss the climate issue today in Sweden. We don't talk so very much about burden sharing as they do in Dubai. We talk about benefit sharing. We see that companies see the possibilities now to get further on in this transition, and they are in hurry because the market's increasing. This is sort of a global race just now. We compete with Biden and Germany and France. Where will the investors put their money? So in that case, I think it's very important to tell all people in Sweden that we're now losing money if we don't step up. And it's a big gap between what we hear in this room or in other conferences compared to what we hear when we just talk with people on the street. So that's the main challenge now. People don't believe that this is good for Sweden and for the welfare to be fossil free. In that perspective, we all have a responsibility and possibilities to talk and take this narrative into different rooms and groups. Because we see that if we don't believe in this, we have populists and others that can make us scared. And people, I think, in common are more afraid about changing the society in short perspective than of climate change. And if that's true, we need to tell all people that if we don't take step forward, if we don't do these investments, we will lose money on welfare. But many people think it's better to take it slowly and just sit down and wait. So that's the main challenge. But the hope is, of course, that in Sweden we can collaborate. And as you see on this movie, we have a successful collaboration in Östersund when Skanska and Volvo and Östersund themselves share risks and also get together and show people how they can invest and be in the forefront and also stimulate the export industry by these local examples. We have also 7 climate leaders, local municipality leaders that are very, very keen on public procurement because we can't deliver on these roadmaps if we don't work together with the local municipalities. They have the power, they have the money, and the public procurement is a crucial point if we could deliver this success story from Sweden. So that's why we also work very closely now with Viable Cities and also with other climate contracts municipalities, because this is the very, very crucial actors, and we will want to work closely with them because if we don't have this power from them, we can't succeed. So the word is rather chaotic just now, you know, but I will say, but it has never been easier to be fossil free because of the learning curves, because of the price of solar, the price of wind, the price of batteries. It's much, much easier than compared with 10 years ago. So we have 2 stories, one bad story and one very good story. but people don't believe in the good story. And that's frustrating to just now. We have the great possibilities. It has never been easier, but people are afraid. So please, let us talk about the possibilities and that we have a fantastic situation in Sweden with so many good actors, unions, environmental movements, local municipalities, and others. So it's amazing to be here and to be part of this industrial revolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Axelsson. As we heard, almost infinite amount of opportunities await companies that understand and are mobilizing to meet the demand of cities. Thank you so much. Which is also something my next two guests can tell us more about. Welcome on stage, Mikael Sandfridsson, Mayor of the City of Linköping, and Liva Falesson, Member of the City Council in Skellefteå, as well as Chair of Klimatkommunerna, an alliance of Swedish municipalities striving to minimize climate impact. Thank you so much for joining us. In what way do you work with involving companies in your local climate transition work in Linköping and Skellefteå? Let's start with Linköping.
Thank you. Is the sound is on. Well, thank you for the question. First of all, Linköping has a long tradition of working together between the business sector and the municipality, and of course the academia and the civil society. But we have increased our efforts in this area since 2018. And now we have our Linköping's initiative, which has doubled up in the last years. Heading for climate neutral Linköping, of course. And today we have the eight members in the very energy intensive companies who is working together, sharing ideas and helping each other to reduce the impact on the climate Linköping. So it's a very strong collaboration where we inspire each other and also get inspired, of course, but find solutions together between this cross-sector cooperation to find the new way forward in this area.
And what are you doing in Skellefteå? How are you involving companies?
Well, Skellefteå is now in a very big change because of the battery factory that is being established. And of course, we need the companies to be together with us in this change. But Skellefteå hasn't always been in this positive journey. So we started a few years ago a big dialogue with the people in our municipality, with the companies, and we set a vision for the municipality that because we understood that the best ambassadors for making a change is the people that lives in our society and the companies that are working locally. So we have started the change and we involving the companies in that kind of area.
And in what way have you been able to leverage the work of Fossil Free Sweden so far in your local climate transition?
I would say it's through the procurement in our big projects on building houses and building industrial area in land use, for example. And we see that if we were together and set a vision in different kind of projects, we can focus together and making the best of this project.
And how have you been working in Linköping to leverage the work of Fossil Free Sweden?
Well, in many ways, in the same way, collaboration between the different sectors with common goals and ambitions. And for the future now, we are in a time where we have to expand the collaboration, invite more companies and more discussion between the cross sectors to learn and to scale up all the solutions. But also how Linköping, the municipality and the public sector can be stands for a new leadership in those issues.
And can you give a concrete example of how you are stepping up the local climate transition with companies in Linköping?
Yes, well, The initiative, I didn't...
A concrete example of how you are stepping up that to work together with companies in Linköping.
Yes, well, we have a test bed in Linköping in Ebbe Park, which is a large area where companies and housing are in the same area. So in this area, it's a living test bed where we contribute with test bed checks, where companies can apply for testing their ideas or product or a service, and combine it with a work together with the members or should I say partners in the climate neutral Linköping to test how it works and get help to scale it up and to make more out of the idea.
An example from Skellefteå you want to bring about so we can learn from?
I would say the land use project Site East together with Skanska. And as I mentioned, we set a vision for this project and how we could be more fossil free. And that has been a really good example that we could scale up to other areas today because Skellefteå is changing. We are moving to 2,000 new people that moves to Skellefteå this year, 2023. So as I said, we need also the citizens to understand that this change is for the whole society and it affects everyone. And I think the small and the mid-sized companies also want to be a part of this change. So it's really fun to work in that area where you really feel that the people are together in this change and the companies.
Thank you so much, Linköping and Skellefteå. Talking about fun is always fun. Finally, I'll invite Elisabeth Bachterman, Director General of Tillväxtverket, who's also fun. Tillväxtverket is a Swedish agency for economic and regional growth, which is a government agency that works to promote sustainable growth and competitive companies all over Sweden. Terribly long things there. Okay, so 23 cities are mobilizing together with Tillväxtverket. What's the importance of these cities as international forerunners from your perspective?
Well, I think on one hand you can say they are only 23 cities. But on the other hand, I think it's very important to remember that they represent 40% of the Swedish population. So from that point of view, I think they can have a significant impact. And I think also if they collaborate effectively together and we collaborate as national agencies and regional agencies as well, I think they can make a great change. And just to mention a couple of examples, I think they can act as a significant driver of markets, for example, through procurement and by creating demand for sustainable solutions. And also maybe from a different perspective, I believe they can also be of great asset for knowledge dissemination. Because they have the proximity and the contacts with local businesses and they know their needs.
And in what way can Tillväxtverket help enhance the role of companies to accelerate climate transition work? Can you go about and say yalla yalla to people?
Definitely. But I think, maybe to state the obvious, the green transition is not just crucial for climate transition, but also to maintain and strengthen competitiveness for our companies. And we just recently carried out a survey, and I just share some figures here. 8 out of 10 companies in Sweden agree that green transition is necessary for their long-term competitiveness, and also that a significant share of these companies also view the green transition as an opportunity to seize, and they have already started the transformation process. So what can we at Tillväxtverket do then to help? Well, I think we have an extensive knowledge base from our surveys and our reports. And from these we have mapped both the driving forces for change and also the obstacles for green transitions. So I think from this knowledge we can help to, in a more effective way, design different kind of measures that are needed to do the transition, both for small and larger companies.
You're also the responsible in Sweden for the EU funds for regional development. How can these funds play a role in accelerating the collaboration, including companies?
Yeah. Well, the European Regional Development Fund is our most powerful financing tool to contribute to the green transition. And during this ongoing program period that lasts until 2027, we manage several funds with total investments of approximately 25 billion Swedish crowns. And some of these funds are earmarked for sustainable urban development, and most of them support green transition of companies and cities. And I think to get the most out of these funding opportunities and knowledge about the needs of the companies and the companies of different sizes is really crucial. And the cooperation among different actors are also very necessary.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth Bachterman of Tillväxtverket. Let's now talk about radical implementation and upscaling. Radical implementation is the idea that you test something that has the potential to be transformative. It's not just doing things here and there, but looking at sort of the core, improvement at the core rather than changing something at margins. And one of the benefits of having 23 Swedish cities and 100 European cities is to work together. We can learn from each other, as we heard many times today. So to talk about this conversation on radical upscaling, I'd like to invite Björn Risinger, Director General of the Environmental Protection Agency in Sweden, and Darja Isaksson, Director General of Vinnova, the National Innovation Agency tasked with strengthening our innovative capacity. Welcome. So we know the transition will need to happen faster, and we need systems change. Upscaling these new solutions. It seems like we're saying the same words all over again here. But what do you see the most important aspects in enabling radical implementation, Ms. Isaksson?
I mean, you'll recognize some of the themes. I'll just start by coming back to something Carolina mentioned that we've heard about. So one thing has to do with mindset and leadership. So in some rooms, not this one, one sometimes hears the talk about risks of investing now, assuming a future that we know does not exist. Like the business as usual future does not exist. That's a quite scientifically based truth. So then, and the cost of inaction will be immeasurable. So what the opposite is having science and climate informed decisions being made and with a 10x mindset. So that's coming to your point. And that's actually what we see here. We see where people with a climate informed and the knowledge works together with the people who makes the financial decisions and priorities, if we put it that way. So that's one thing. The other thing that we also hear a lot about here is the importance of working together with the private sector. And with the private sector that has the 10x mindset, we see that a lot in new innovative companies. So that requires the public sector to do what these climate cities are doing, driving investments and deploying new solutions. And that often requires a little bit of risk-taking because there will be unanswered questions on business models and some other things. And then doing that in a coordinated, not top-down way, but one where we learn from each other faster. So I think Julio didn't mention it, but actually this mission-based approach allows for a kind of a cross-mission in terms of how do you procure this or implement that. And of course, it will be some geographical skills. So that's a really enabler. And then also picking up on a previous theme, engaging local citizens in this section, because absolutely we're talking about multiple positive outcomes. We're going to have healthier, more resilient and sustainable cities and drive competitiveness at the same time when we do this. So making sure that that is seen and felt and understood.
Mr. Risinger, what do you see as the most important aspects in enabling radical implementation?
Well, at first, we at the government agencies, we do a lot of work in cooperation to really try to do a good job to help the municipalities. For instance, in the Council for Sustainable Cities, and we have a lot of cooperation, for instance, with the National Board of Building and Housing, doing green planning guidelines and things like that.
an important measure is also to share risk in climate investments, and that's a big task for the Swedish EPA. And the grants for climate investments are raising to 500 million euros next year. So we have there's a lot of possibilities for the municipalities, and I say that it's not only for municipalities and cities, it's also for all the companies in the municipalities. So that's really a big possibility as well.
Do we need to develop our international collaboration even further, do you think? Or, I mean, we can learn from others, of course, but sometimes I feel like we should be more thinking here and what we can collaborate here rather than being all over the place, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Well, I mean, absolutely. I think there's a great opportunity for that, because what we also heard, I think Anders Wijkman mentioned, is the need for multi-level governance across. And that includes a multinational perspective. So from a European perspective, we're all aware that the EU level is extremely important in terms of regulatory approach. And then at the local level, I mean, a municipality or a national government agency, we can all support by let's say, sharing risk and also have the opportunities to kind of create the markets we need. But they will grow much faster if we also learn from each other in a coordinated way at the multinational level in various ways. So that's one thing. But I also think in terms of how to support with knowledge and working together. So I agree with Björn that when we do that. So if we're looking internationally, we understand the importance of working with policy labs, explorative work together, or even internationally we see examples of regulatory sandboxes like time-limited experimentation, and these are also tools that are being deployed in various countries. So all of which are kind of designed to help drive experiments in a coordinated and risk-managed way, so that we can even learn from each other faster.
Exactly. So it's not about sort of only solving problems here, but sharing risk in terms of the knowledge creation internationally.
Yes.
If you come too much of this, then it's you're lost. Jan, what do you think?
Well, I would say that the EU perspective in the transition is really strong. So now we have all these new EU legislation coming. We have a task for the agencies for years to come to make an effective implementation of all that. And when we do that, we cannot do that at home only. We have to still collaborate in the whole EU family to make that happen and to make that work for the industry, for instance.
And I think all the climate investment plans under the climate contracts provides a huge opportunity in doing this, because when you deploy, for instance, I don't know, heavy-duty EVs at the regional level, or you will have a lot of kind of last-mile things where you need to kind of really understand some things about business models or risk sharing, or what does it mean, and when you don't have to do that as many times as we have cities. But so when we coordinate the lessons learned, then the procurement and how to set the policy will be even faster than whoever comes next. So when we increase our ability to work this way, we together with we will strengthen the new markets that we really need. And I think that's one of the most important shared responsibilities of the public, to kind of share risk and help drive these markets.
Thank you, Mr. Sigson from Vinnova and Mr. Riedringer from the Environmental Protection Agency. I will now welcome Mr. Anders Söderholm on stage. He's the president of KTH Royal Institute of Technology here in Stockholm. And as you might know, KTH is one of the leading universities in engineering and technology in the world. It's also the host university of Viable Cities, for which we are very grateful. Welcome. You get applause just for being here. What do you see that universities in Sweden and elsewhere can do to enable climate action in cities?
Well, there are so many things universities can and must do. I mean, our core activities are teaching and research. And in both these activities, it needs to be an integrated part also to contribute to sustainable cities, to sustainable society in general. So I think it's permitting all activities that we actually do. But then again, we could also engage in programs like the Viable Cities. And, you know, I'm being proud of that we are able to host programs like this, because through them we could also engage with stakeholders in other universities, cities, but also agencies and even internationally. So that provides another sort of tool set, set of tools to work with these questions on a long-term basis.
Because the campus itself is a miniature city within the city. In what way are you using that today to implement solutions for the future and inspire the city as a whole?
Well, that is done on campus as well in terms of the property owner and us are working together to make our facilities more efficient in so many ways, also monitoring them in more intelligent ways to use them more in a more energy efficient way, also being more sustainable.
Why is it important for you and the rest of the KTH to be host for Viable Cities? I mean, you mentioned a little bit before, but
I think the big thing is something that Allan Larsson said earlier, that we are used to work with standalone projects, one after another in a long row, and that is something that our professors work hard to fund each and every day. Having a program like Viable Cities creates a more mission-driven agenda, where you not only are able to evaluate projects due to their excellence, but also whether they are appropriate or not in order to fit into that agenda. So I think it becomes more meaningful, and you have a better impact in the long run if you could work in mission-driven agendas like the Viable Cities.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anders Söderholm of KTH Royal Institute of Technology. Finally, we're going to hear two examples of radical implementation. I want to welcome Erik Pelling, Mayor of the City of Uppsala, and Anna Tore, Member of the City Assembly in Kalmar and Chairman of the Environmental Council there. Ms. Tore, you get applause for just existing. Lovely. Tell us about your work with upscaling production of biogas in Kalmar and how that can lead to radical change.
Biogas work.
Yeah.
We have a lot of farmers, and thereby we have a lot of manure. So we're gathering all this manure and making biogas, of course. Many cities do that. But that something really good happened this year. We used to produce biogas for about 10 GWh, 20 GHW. But now we have big actors coming to Kalmar, looking out for our animals, trying to gather all this manure. And now we have about 200 GHW. So now there's a big upscaling, and it's a lot of hard work behind it. It doesn't do it itself. So
because it started really small, just a couple of farmers.
Yeah. So it went from this 10. How do you say GWh?
Gigawatt hours. Yeah.
Gigawatt hours. Yeah. And now it's over 200 coming up in Kalmar. So yeah, it's upscaling.
And how is that? I mean, you've clearly also been using a bit of your convening power as a municipality to gather various actors and help them build common ground.
Yeah, we've been fascinating.
Because they were angry at each other, if I remember.
Yeah, we have all these farmers' history long way back, fighting each other's. And we tried to gather them, make them talk to each other, and they find out, well, we can cooperate with our manure and gather all the energy in one place. So overcoming old.
And so now we have two major companies engaged in placing a biogas plant in Kalmar.
Yeah.
And when is that going to happen then?
I hope the next year.
Yeah.
The bottleneck right now is the energy to get them to the companies so they can produce all this biogas.
The power lines is the problem.
Yeah. As always.
As always. Mr. Pelling, tell us about your work to change the behavior of the staff in the municipal kitchen to conserve energy.
Well, that's the benefit of working on the local level. You can easily get to action. We can make our hands dirty and make things happen in real life. And Uppsala municipality, it's a big organization, 15,000 employed by the municipality. So we can work on large scale projects like a new tramway system, 6 billion investment, which will be a big part of the electrification of Uppsala, a very efficient system. And when we do that, we will need more energy. And it's not just about how we produce the energy. It needs to be renewable and environmental friendly and all that. But we also need to work on when we use the energy and how we use the electricity. And that's why we started to look at our school kitchens, because they use quite a lot of electricity.
They have peaks and then they do nothing and then peaks. And
Yes,
then,
they need to cook all the potatoes, rice, and put a lot of fish in the ovens all at the same time. So you have this electricity peak, and the kitchen staff focused on cooking good food for the children. They weren't aware that they could perhaps do this differently and save energy and use the energy in a smarter way. And that's why we engaged the kitchen personnel together with, I think it was Energimyndigheten and some other researchers. And they all had to get their hands dirty and they started to work. And now the kitchen personnel can look at the electricity consumption on a monitor in the kitchen, and they can see the peaks with their own eyes. And then they can start to
not cook potatoes and fish at the same time.
Yes. And mix with the temperature and all that. And it works. And they have made a difference. And that could be an example not only for other school kitchens in all the country of Sweden, but also for other parts of the municipality. Because if the kitchen personnel could do that, of course other employed people or other workplaces in the city of Uppsala could make a difference on their spot.
And you, if I remember correctly, also save money when it comes to the amount of capacity you have to build. So in the construction, you need less capacity because you're going to need less capacity eventually, and so you can even lower construction cost.
Yes.
Yeah. And I should also mention another thing which impressed us all, because all the cities were in Uppsala not far ago, and then talking about radical sharing and stuff like that. You start by sharing food. So we were all eating this food, and then they told us how it was done. So that is also radical upscaling while making people satisfied at the same time. Thank you so much for joining us, Uppsala and Kalmar. What's important is that these changes were not made as a singular time-limited processes, but rather processes or projects, but rather processes that are scalable and in some cases edible, which is fun. And now I'm going to hand back to our host for some final remarks. Annika Weppling-Konsignek, head of the European Commission's representation in Sweden, comes here, and Cecilia Schlin-Seidegård, chairperson of Viable Cities.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for a very inspiring afternoon. As always, we learned a lot and got very concrete examples of how to scale up and how to really get moving. And I think that is the really inspiring part of this get together, that we can really see what can happen at local level. And I was just thinking something that Björn Riesinger said from that what we also see now is, of course, that we set on the EU level, we set the targets. We set the 2050 targets to climate neutrality, but also to reduce emissions by 55% to 2030. And then we had the whole Fit for 55 packages, if you remember. And now this will start to be implemented. We have to do this now. So just sending that as a note with you, that of course now, and also at national level, this implementation will really start. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing, because I think it's actually something that help, because it will continue driving this transition and also kind of put an institutional frame around it and push it even further. So I think, even though it's sometimes mentioned as something cumbersome, I think it can actually lead the transformation further and faster ahead. But I just wanted to thank you all for fantastic examples and for sharing your experiences today. Cecilia.
Thank you, Annika. And I have the honor of saying thank you to many of you here. First of all, of course, to you, Annika, and the European Commission for your leadership and for inspiring us with such a clear mission as you have. And also, of course, for providing such excellent facilities for this yearly event. I also would like to thank everybody working within Viable Cities, to Olga and Åsa and their team, and especially also to Madeleine Bergman. She was sitting there, you are, who has organized everything.
Yeah, excellent, Madeleine. And also thank you to KTH for being such a supportive and innovative host for us and our organization. I hope you have visited our premises sometime. Have you? No? That's something to do. It's very, very nice there, and we can look over to your house, actually. And I would like to thank everybody who are here. And now the planet will not adjust to our timelines. So I'm happy to see the leadership. I was talking a lot about leadership in the beginning, how important that is. But I think it's growing now in many cities in Sweden and also across Europe, and our common mission. So let's keep going together. Thank you very much. And also thank you, Per, for being such an excellent moderator. We forgot that.
That's very kind of you. Thank you so much.
An extra applaud for him.
To follow what all the cities are doing within the Viable Cities, please follow Viable Cities on LinkedIn and read more at viablecities.se. Thank you from all of us here in Stockholm. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. Hej då to the people at the COP28. And let's see you again here in a year.